So I'll introduce myself. I'm a DP and a digital imaging director. I made a movie called Oceans and another called Home. I've been invited to speak about not so sexy, but interesting things called lookup tables and gamma curves. So the reason why we are interested in many associations of cinematographers like AFC or Imago about this, because we think that lookup tables and gamma curves are very important. And we think that, in fact, if we don't have any control on this part of the workflow, we will be in trouble. It's not only a technical debate, but it's also an artistic debate. So you will find contrast curves, gamma curves, in cameras, monitors, and grading tools. You will find also built-in log curves in several tools nowadays. And this become more and more famous. And Peter explained some minutes ago that the importance of having log curves. So the lookup tables are conversion tables to mimic, to apply a look or to simulate a color space. And you will find, once again, in camera monitoring and post-production, dailies, editing, and grading. We're speaking about two words, simulation and implementation. Sometimes you just simulate, but it's not baked in the process. So you just have an idea, but it's not baked in. And implementation is a very important part of the process. But you must know when it arrives. So if we're speaking about the general workflow, if you're shooting, for example, with the Alexa, if you're going to DCP and film out and TV, you have two different LUTs. But in fact, we will arrive very soon to separate the LUTs, because the importance of the DCP will give us the possibility to have no constraint at all, because there is not the film color space. So I think it's part of the debate of a new era concerning possibilities that colorists and DPs will encounter. So if we're shooting with a log curve, the problem is very simple. Do you think I am depressed, I need Prozac, I need much more coffee? That's a problem, because if you're working with a producer or director who is not accustomed to see that, it's very dangerous to show him that. It could be a serious matter. So, of course, the reason why we choose that, and Peter explained better than me, with a better exposure than me, that the great exposure latitude and the great dynamic range for grading is giving a lot of possibilities. So in fact, when I'm looking at this image, I know that I have all my information inside the image. And this is the power of the log curve. But the problem is, it's not really sexy to see. And it's dangerous to show that without any control. And the control is a LUT. And for example, if we baked in for the release print, it's a simulation on set, but it's implementation at the end. And of course, this is, for example, a Kodak or a Fujifilm release print LUT. If we're speaking, for example, what happened in the Alexa, this is an image shot by the Alexa in a full day at noon, okay? This is a linear image, and it's not really sexy to see, once again. And this is a result with the Alexa. So, of course, there is a way to transform the linear signal to the log C. And this is the beginning of the story. The way the manufacturer is delivering us this image is part of the beginning of the digital stocks. So we must know and we must understand the way they proceed to deliver such image, because that's the beginning of the creation, that's the beginning also of the technical debate. So for example, this is the Alexa in video mode with a log C, a tone mapping, which is like a color correction, and a gamma correction, and plus a matrix. So a lot of things are implemented to give this image. Do we like it? It's a question of taste, okay? I don't say this is a nice image. I say this is the Alexa in video mode, which reproduces the Rec 709, I would say, environment. So we must know the difference between these different types of LUTs. Once again, the log C, and the log C with a tone mapping, which is a way to grade this image with pushing the color, the saturation of the color. And for example, this is another way to use only the color matrix. This is a very simple way to work, and some colorists use that, some not. It's the question of, I would say, of way of working with this image. This is the Genesis camera, and you see it's a LUT with it's without any LUT. It's a log curve, and this is what we can do. We can do in very different modes. So, if we're speaking about the DPC, I really think that we must understand that we will have a lot of possibility in the future because we have a new space to work with. So the problem of the LUTs for nowadays is we know that there is a simulation when we're going to monitoring. We know that we have a simulation when we're going to monitoring and editing, and it's through Rec 709. And this is another LUT to go to the simulation of the film color space. But what is important is to have exactly the same image. And I don't choose any type of workflow if this is not respected. I don't care if it's compressed. I don't care if it's a proxy. Even with a proxy, we must have the level of saturation of color and the level of contrast similar to what we have been decided and set. If you don't have this, it means that you're creating the first step to trouble. So it can become a hell. And you know, it's really important. I want to see the same image all over the workflow. What I'm going to decide with the director on set, I must reproduce that as the best way possible. It's a very important matter. So for example, one of the advantages of the Alexa, for example, is the fact that you can work without any monitoring, which is very nice, very, very cool. The problem is someone will need some LUTs. And if you're working without any monitoring, I do recommend you as DP to check what the directors and the editor will see. If not, you're going to be lost and very surprised because it will be the editor who will do the first step of grading. And during several weeks, the director will see an image which will be not controlled by the DPs and the directors, which is called beginning of hell. So, because the grading will be influenced by these decisions. So it's very simple that we understand that we need metadata to control all this process, but it has to start from there to there and to finish to the grading. And these metadata are nowadays on many, many cameras not really well set. So I really appreciate the way that Alexa worked on that with many, many manufacturers. Because these LUTs must be reliable and provide the same images, depending on the type of editing and the type of monitors. So if we're speaking about reliability, I think that the only way to control this is to ask the lab to be in charge of the process. Because I can do very nice LUTs on my computer, but Peter will look at me and say, my God, what is that? You know, so it's very simple to fuck up and to screw a process. The key role of the colorist for me is one part of the process which creates a good way to handle this workflow. So there is a trendy posture nowadays which give people the idea of creating a lot of LUTs and invading the computers of colorists, the colorist computers with many, many LUTs. And what happened? You don't see anymore the image, you just see LUTs. So we try to avoid this because a LUT is like a digital stock. Do we need 20, 25, 30 film stocks? No, we need only 3, 4 maximum film stock. We don't need more than, in a way, LUTs are similar. So we have to avoid this confusion between digital dailies, grading, and LUTs. That's a serious matter. So my feeling is we are close to create something which could be called digital stocks, and with the advantage of giving reliability. So the way I'm working to create these LUTs, first of all, I want to be sure that the manufacturers and the lab has a serious control of the process, knowing the advantage and the issues of the camera and knowing the advantage of the issue of the lab. If not, I don't want to go from manufacturers to rental house. I prefer to start with lab, DIT's role, and working on first to establish the look of the film during test. And on this way only, you can have a serious control of the workflow. Manufacturers, lab, rental house, and it works. If you go in another way like this, it's another story. So, of course, we need an involvement of DPs and colorists to do this, because of the power that we can reach with an artistic control and technical control. So these virtual digital stocks are really providing a good way of contouring the image. Personally, I use only 3 or 4. One for exteriors, one for indoors, one for night, and that's all. It's very simple. And is it a perfect world? Unfortunately, no. Because many cameras have serious problem about monitoring. What you see is not what you get. Sometimes it's a big problem, and everybody in this audience knows about several problems we had on certain types of cameras because of the lack of reliability of the camera monitoring. The control of the real-time debayering is the beginning of the good way to handle the process. If you don't have a good monitoring, it means that you must have only one single image that you process and not check your monitoring as a reference. Because if not, you screw all the system. Because the debayer control is a very, very important thing. So in fact, for me, we're just starting the digital world. And I think that in the future, colorists, DPs will want some or several log curves, depending on the type of set, depending on the type of image, especially with the DCP. And this is the beginning of the digital stocks, and this is the beginning of an artistic debate and an artistic adventure. So once again, DPs and colorists must be involved in this process. If not, voila. So thank you very much.